What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Game Time Discussions. My name is Cameron Selby here with Emory Cuzzy. Today we are going to be doing something brand new called the What Would We Do mock draft. This is something we've done in the past, but we're going to bring it to our podcast. Basically, we play the GMs. We're divvying it up. He's NFC, I'm AFC. We pick as if we were the GM. We're not projecting. We're not doing any rumors. None of that. It's what we view, and we're putting all our research to the chest. So it should be very, very exciting.
Yeah, so if I'm a team and I think that, I have a guy way over other guys, even knowing if he's probably going to go higher in the draft, doesn't matter. I'm going to take him because that's the guy that I want.
Yeah.
We see that happen all the time. We see guys get picked early, so here we go. Yeah, so Caleb Williams, first overall. No surprise here. Chicago's basically been on the clock for this whole time. Caleb's met with them a few times, talked with Keenan Allen at his pro day, all kinds of stuff. So we basically feel like this is the easiest click ever.
Yeah. I mean, Keenan Allen has announced he is not using number 13, and I wonder why that is. So, they've met with him several times. It's happening. Whether we're what would we do or a real mock draft, this is the pick.
Yeah.
Draft starts at 2. But even in this draft, we're both on the same consensus that if we were Washington's GM, we're going to go with Jaden Daniels. It makes a lot of sense stylistically. We've said before with Cliff Kingsbury coming to Washington as the OC, the hybrid quarterback he likes to work with, and it just makes a lot of sense in that regard. So that's why we're starting with just both of them. Plays starting at 2.
Yeah, we're not drafting these two. We're just saying these are the guys. It's a consensus. 3's a little bit more crazy, but both of these guys very deserving. Caleb Williams has been good for 3 years, basically. Jaden Daniels was a Heisman winner this year. No stats are bringing them down. None of that stuff. So we should definitely just hop to 3.
Yeah. So me being the AFC, I'm going to start with New England, and I don't want to make this pick. We're not ready to draft a quarterback that's going to start. We have one of probably the least talented skill group position in the entire NFL. And there's just a lot of holes. And it's not only that, but you don't even have the offensive mind that you're certain will be there for the coming years. It's just not a good situation for quarterback, or at least to start out the gate. So even if we would take this pick, that person wouldn't play a snap for me this year.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're going to do is we're going to gain draft capital and figure out how the board lands. So we're going to gain 11, 23, and then a 2025 third and fifth from Minnesota. And Minnesota, who's one of the more rumored teams that's going to be trading up since they get an extra first-round pick from Houston.
Right.
They're the easy team to click on. So I'll let you take it away.
So I got the call, and I thought it would be better to trade up to 3 and get my choice.
Mm-hmm.
My pick is Drake May. It's not JJ McCarthy, like we are probably predicting Minnesota to end up with if they go fourth or fifth. But I think Drake May is the better prospect, the more put together player, bigger, better arm, good athlete. At the end of the day, he's not even going to be 22 when the season starts. And everybody talks about, we have a great situation in Minnesota where Drake comes in and he has an opportunity to sit behind Sam Darnold, get to play with some really good receivers and tight ends, giving him an opportunity to learn and then also possibly play a little bit for us if that comes to fruition. We have the best opportunity of, I'll leave Chicago out of this, but of Washington, New England, and us for a quarterback to succeed early. And so, taking the 2022 ACC Player of the Year and getting him on our team, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Something I've brought up multiple times across the videos we've done in the pre-draft process. Minnesota is the best place to get a quarterback. And if I had to predict who's going to succeed the most out of all these prospects, because it's going to be a elite class if 3 of the 6 pan out.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that being said, how I would rank it is Caleb Williams, then whoever Minnesota drafts, and then the rest, it depends on where they go.
Right.
That's how I view it. It's very similar to 2021 where, Trevor Lawrence was the guy, and then we thought San Fran was the best situation, which they didn't pick the right guy at that time, but they got the last pick of the draft that has gone to back-to-back NFC Championship, Super Bowl appearance. So we were right on the situation.
Yeah.
And if Brock Purdy, for some reason, was in that class and they just doubled down on quarterback, it'd be the same sentiment. We could just say that we were right. So it makes all the sense in the world. Drake May's the guy. We have him much higher than any other quarterback in our rankings of guys that are available.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's a good pick.
And I think we talk about situations. I actually don't think Washington has a bad situation either. Jaden Daniels goes there in this draft, but I think any quarterback that goes there could also prosper with good receivers, good complement running game right now, and possibility to have to score 100 points every game. So,
right.
But yeah, so Minnesota, Drake May after moving up, easy, slotted in, and then we'll jump to Arizona. Arizona is my team. I get to pick for Arizona, the NFC, and we go with the best player in the draft. I think it's, Arizona's slam dunk. They should not trade back, even if someone's calling for JJ McCarthy. We're taking wide receiver here.
Mm-hmm.
Take the best wide receiver on the board. I know there's conversations that he's not the best, but in this room, he's the best by far. So
yeah, and again, if Arizona was the third pick, we would have started this whole video with him already slotted to, because that's exactly what I would do in this situation. He's our number one player on the board, and we are mutual feeling on that. So it makes a lot of sense. It's best gift that Kyler Murray could have had. They desperately need, receiving help, and he's a guy that is just such a sure thing to me in this draft. I don't know if it's a situation where if you go back to 2011, AJ Green was the sure thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Julio Jones in the same class was a guy that was like, oh yeah, he's the exciting guy, but not refined. Right. We'll see how it goes. But he was a guy that would be a top 10 pick. Julio ended up having the better career. But AJ Green, first 7 years, was a Pro Bowler. Mm-hmm. That many 1,000-yard seasons. It's just because he went to Cincinnati. And that's why he's not as revered as high as he should be.
Right.
I don't know if he's built a first ballot Hall of Fame resume. Probably not with all the receivers that are backloaded, but eventually one day he should get in based on his talent. He's had playoff moments. So, so I think it's a good pick once again. You're off to a hell of a start as a Tennessee GM.
Yeah. The depth at the position in this class is why I think people talk about the fact that you could pass on him and get another guy that makes sense, but just take the best player available. Take the best player in the draft, and that's what I did. All right, moving on to 5, the LA Chargers. Cam, you're up.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty easy for us showing that we need linemen. And we have a new regime with Jim Harbaugh coming in, and we're trying to revitalize and revamp our offense. And while we do need receivers, that can be addressed later. This is a very deep class, but there is a consensus top tackle on the board, and it's just hard to not stay here and take him with nobody calling to trade back for a quarterback.
Right.
We would very much entertain that offer. We didn't really get many phone calls, so that's why we're going to stay put. Joe Alt is our guy. We're going to slide him to the right to start off, but it's just crazy, insane production at Notre Dame, and it's not something that can be ignored. So that's why we want to make that pick.
Yeah, I think, there's a few guys in this class that you can talk about as like, you can project them and see them being all pros. Like, there's not very many guys that you're like, I just love that guy so much that he just projects to me in that way. And Joel, Marvin Harrison, those two guys, like, I'm like, you have to have, like, these are the guys you build your team around. and you have the opportunity for the Chargers is, now you have two all-pro style tackles. That makes quarterback life a lot easier when that's a possibility. I'm expecting y'all to want to run the ball. Well, here's one of the guys that can do both. So yeah, I just think this is a great pick for sure.
Yeah, and he's one of our top 3 prospects in this draft, and it just makes too much sense. It's a very, very clean prospect, very young, and you don't see a lot of situations where you have figured out and hit on both tackles and that team not having long sustaining success.
Right.
You can see teams like, for example, the Giants went back-to-back years trying to pick tackle. Well, one was a clear mix and one remains to be seen, but he hasn't lived up to what we've seen. So they missed on both. Well, Rashawn Slater, as a rookie, was already a top 10 left tackle. And he's kind of fallen off just because he had an instant injury his second year, and then third year wasn't as great as somebody like Christian Darrisaw, who was in the same class. But Joe Alt, if he pans out, it's such a good start to the Harbaugh era in Los Angeles.
So I do have a question, though. You were saying, Slater and Darrisaw. I know that in that class, Slater was a little bit older, and Darrisaw was younger. Similar here, you're going to get a younger player in Joe Alt. Do you think that is going to immediately impact? Do you think he can overcome that, I guess is my best way of putting it?
Yeah, I think so, because it'll be an offense catered to helping out the offensive line.
Right.
It's not going to be something where we're going to drop back 50 times like Justin Herbert's probably been accustomed to with Kellen Moore and in recent regimes. So this is going to be more in your face, smash mouth.
Yeah.
And I know that there's other right tackles that maybe fit that better. We could have targeted him, not at this pick.
Yeah. Of course.
Again, we would have listened to trade offers, but nobody came in ringing. So that's why we're gonna roll with what we got and just figure out our other needs later in the draft.
And it's always easier to transition to run blocking than it is to pass blocking at the NFL level. So
for sure,
getting that, they ran the ball 45 times a game at Michigan. Why can't they do some of that? Maybe not that much when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, but yeah, of course. But yeah.
Yeah, so kicking off back to you for number 6, New York Giants on the clock.
Yeah, we have a group of wide receiver 3s. We have no Saquon Barkley, which we've talked about multiple times this offseason.
Possibly no Darren Waller.
Might retire. So we have to figure out how to get some playmakers on the field and pay for that Daniel Jones contract that we did. So Malik Neighbors. We talk about this on other shows, but basically we need speed. The other option would have been Rome Odunze. He's a great player, but the things that Neighbors can do with the ball in his hands after the catch make me want to pick him over Rome in this situation. The Giants need speed, and if that is the explosiveness and the things that Malik can do, that's what we want.
So let me ask you this, because I know you brought up the Daniel Jones contract situation. You weren't there when they made that extension deal. However, with that being said, you got to find somebody that can make the most, not only what you have with Daniel Jones for now, but with these two receivers, Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze, who is able to thrive more with lower production at quarterback based on their style of play?
I would say that I would probably say Neighbors. I think it has to do with speed. I do, of course, love Rome's ability to make contested catches. So yes, sometimes like if the ball is thrown poorly, he can adjust his body balance and everything is just amazing. But I need a guy that can catch the ball 4 yards down the field and take it for 20. And also, my quarterback just decides Jameis Winston it and throw as far as he can. Well, I'm going to go run under it.
Right.
Because I have that speed and that style of play. So I think that's my thing. And also, I love the age. So young.
Oh, yeah. 21 to start the year.
Yeah, that's to start the year. So he's, 20, barely 20 and a half right now. And he's going to excel at learning how to beat zone coverage. When they're going to have to double him. When New York plays anybody, they don't have other players, and that's part of the problem. Well, he's going to take a lot of that away so that other people can get open and make plays.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see the same things with Rome, because with Rome, he ran like a 4.45. He's not necessarily a speedster. He has the size, though, and he has the catchability, but he probably fits a team that is more ready than Malik in that situation, in that way.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's a coin flip to me on both of these guys to this specific spot. But when I did ask that question about, overcoming bad quarterback play, I'm thinking from the perspective of like watching a ton of Houston games growing up and seeing Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins have to overcome the bad quarterback situations and just carousels that they still produce to Hall of Fame level. However, with the Giants, you may not even be on the Daniel Jones train for long. So maybe next year at this time, because this is one of the least talented rosters probably in the NFC after all the departures you face. So maybe be in this pick range next year. And if the quarterback class isn't as strong and nobody has a Jaden Daniels leap,
right,
you could be able to get the first or even second best quarterback in the class, which, can help turn around that, and it wouldn't be considered a reach.
We're probably going to have to scrap most of our team. And that's hard to say because, we talk about this in free agency. Xavier McKinney, we had to let him walk.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have a really good D-line. But at the end of the day, our D-line, and our linebackers can't make up for our secondary, and they can't make up for our lack of production on offense. Right now, we probably aren't scoring more than 17 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably nice by me, actually. Like, it might be lower, like 14. You might say, oh, well, you're going to have to play some really good defense to win some games this year.
Right.
And so getting an electric player that could catch the ball and take it to the house at any play, anytime, that's kind of a guy I like to have on my team.
Gotcha.
The Tyreek Hill feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So going on to 7, Tennessee's up, and it's a common theme early on, but I'm afraid to take this pick again. So Tennessee probably, in my opinion, has the second or third worst roster.
Right.
And really not a ton of guys that are mainstays for the future. Obviously, we signed Calvin Ridley,
mm-hmm.
but he and DeAndre Hopkins both combined to average 30 years of age. So it's not for long in that situation,
mm-hmm.
and we need to figure out and put things around Will Levis to see if he is indeed the guy. We're kind of set, at least for this year, on skill position, but we need offensive line. Since Taylor Lewan retired abruptly, we just haven't been able to replace him. And, at this point, Joel wasn't able to fall to us like we had hoped due to nobody, trading up for a quarterback. So we're going to move back, get some extra assets, and maybe readdress that line in a couple spots.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, the New York Jets, I wasn't the guy that made the moves. I don't know if I was out of the room or asleep or something, but, we traded for a right tackle, Morgan Moses. We signed Tyron Smith to a 1-year deal. So we addressed both tackle spots with 30-year-old vets.
Mm-hmm.
And at least for this year, we're probably set on the offensive line on the tackle spot, which is kind of heavy where this range is. And it's obvious that Aaron Rodgers needs more help because the guys that he brought in, Brendel Cobb and Alan Lazard and Nicole Hardman from Kansas City, there's no true complement to Garrett Wilson. So with that being said, Rome Odunze we want to pounce on, and we're going to let him be our 1B in our offense.
Yeah, I love that pick. I mean, y'all, the other guy that I think we've talked about in the past possibly being the guy is Brock Bowers.
Mm-hmm.
Rome makes a lot of sense here, though, because he's, the possession, contested catch type of guy. He complements Garrett Wilson really well. And he plays, so both of Garrett Wilson and Rome can play in the slot. They can play out wide. They can kind of do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the type of fluidity you want as as an offense to throw off a defense. So I think this pick makes a lot of sense.
Honestly, I really struggled between Rome here or Brock, because I'm certain that if I did the same trade up to 7 and I selected Brock Bowers, you would not be poo-pooing that whatsoever. However, I've looked at the history at Aaron Rodgers and how he doesn't really utilize the tight end, even in the modern era when he had guys like Jared Cook and Jermichael Finley and Robert Tonyan came out of nowhere one year. Mercedes Lewis as an older player, they've had some moments, but nobody's a 600-yard a game guy. He doesn't really like to target them. He likes going out wide. Look at Donald Driver, Jordy Nelson, Greg Jennings, Devontae Adams towards the end. So he likes the outside guys that can bubble, do short and intermediate game. And, Rome is the guy, to me, that would best complement his skill set, as we're kind of had our bed made. We have to lie in it with the Aaron Rodgers situation. And the next year or two, we got to maximize what we have with him. So I think that Rome gives the best chance, at least in the short term, for that until we have to revitalize the quarterback position.
So we I just talked about Rome versus Malik, and like Rome, we were saying that he has such a great ability and balance when the ball is in the air. And Aaron Rodgers loves throwing the ball. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like basically he wants to make he throws his wide receiver open, of course, but he wants his wide receiver to be able to contort his body and become, that Garrett Wilson catch where he's diving backwards, things like that. That's what Rome can do. That's what his style of play is. So I think that fit quarterback to receiver makes a lot of sense in this situation. He wouldn't be there at 10.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think somebody would want to pound to either 8 or 9. Yeah,
jump ahead. And my thing is too, I think that, the first 7 guys or 6 of the 7 guys, all 7, I guess, that we've talked about so far are the guys that are the most talented in this class, and they should be going 1 through 7. And if any of them fall out of those top 7, someone is moving immediately. And the only guy that's not in there is Brock Bowers. Tight end is a hard position to pin down in this draft or in any draft, really, when quarterback, wide receiver, tackle are the big positions in the NFL and in this draft. So
yeah, and again, a lot of mocks have 4 quarterbacks going in the top 6. When you have a mock that's coming around and only 3 are going, then that just means more talented players are going earlier than expected. So a guy like Joe Alt isn't falling to Tennessee. A guy like Rome Odunze doesn't have a chance to slip to 10 because of, there's one less spot to go. So it's a tough situation, but sometimes you got to just go and get your guy and not worry about the future assets that nobody will remember in a couple of years.
So I've been looking at mock drafts a ton recently, of course, because we're getting so close, and I think Joe Alt to Tennessee is a cop out. I really do. I don't believe he will go to Tennessee. I think he will be gone before that. And I think everybody is copping out, saying Tennessee is the best fit, the best situation for him. Best team that has the biggest need for his position. So everybody wants to place him there. But I don't think he's going to be there at 7. I think that it's going to be really hard for teams to find him falling that far. And that's just personal. I think that, maybe we have him higher on our board than some of these other guys, but I just think we're going to see him go off the board early, and I want to see what Tennessee does in the real draft.
Yeah, so we'll have to do some discussion for our final mock. It's kind of hard when you're projecting basically unofficially putting Minnesota into the top 5, either at 4 or 5, because that is what brings those guys down. One thing that's certain is the other day, the draft props came out. One of the easiest ones to click if you want to bet on something is Joe Alt under 7.5.
Yeah,
he is not falling to 8. Yep. So if you want to say I don't know if he'll be there when Tennessee's there, that just solves the under. But I guarantee you he's not falling past Tennessee. Tennessee's not going to have him available and be like, we're going to trade back. We're going to figure something.
We want Olu instead.
That's not happening. Yeah. So, yeah. But, yeah, so that's a small tangent, but moving on, we're going to go 8 Atlanta. Very interesting because a lot of people have them taking the number 1 defensive player off the board. Who is that in your eyes?
So Latu is going to Atlanta. As long as he passes all the medicals and physicals and all that stuff, this is the guy that well, let me be very honest. Like, if there were no concerns, his medicals had no concerns, he would be the number one edge rusher on everybody's board. Right. I believe. Because he's done it. He's, basically won every award this year, had the highest PFF grade ever, had, 26.2% of his pass rush snaps were pressures. It's just like, I don't know how he is not number one to most people, with those types of numbers and that type of production in a really good conference in the Pac-12 this last year. Normally we make fun of the Pac-12, not this year. They were good top to bottom. They had good quarterbacks everywhere and good teams. So I don't want to underrate his ability, and put someone else there because of the age. Because I think that's the biggest thing right now. Dallas Turner's going to Atlanta on a lot of mocks. It's pretty chalky. And me personally, let's be honest, Dallas Turner didn't have the same production. Dallas Turner has a lot of things to learn. Yes, he's got the age. But Latu going to the Falcons makes sense to me because the Falcons are ready to win the NFC South.
Yeah.
Like, they have the opportunity to be the best team in the NFC South right now.
There is probably not one player, including quarterbacks, that had better tape than Latu did last year. Nobody. He had the highest PFF grade of all time.
Yeah.
Regardless of position. And just insanely productive. Has so many moves, so many skills, and he's just a late bloomer because of age and also having to medically retire at Washington. That's the concern. Otherwise, like, what are we doing? We're gonna keep on doing the Trayvon Walker, Dallas Turner stuff. I haven't seen it work out a ton.
Yeah.
When people are like, there's some guys like I remember Josh Allen, somebody I wasn't high on or I thought was a higher risk play. He was still productive at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Like
17
but
sacks.
Like Trayvon Walker having 0 sacks at Georgia, being a situational pass rusher on a historically great defense. So when you're with other elite first round players and you're still not producing, I'm just gonna look at your combine and be like, oh yeah, that's the first pick. Over
how do you project somebody so much that?
And then Dallas Turner, obviously, he has more than 0 sacks this year.
Right.
But it's not like he was just the guy.
He was very good.
He was very solid.
But at the same time, he was not, like, you turn on tape and there is a level difference, if that makes sense. Like, like there are levels to this game as a pass rusher, and Latu is pass rushing at 23 better than 28-year-olds in the NFL. And that's something that you have to look at. He has way more hand moves, way more counters, all these things that his nuances of his pass rush ability that people much older than him can't do. And I'm telling you right now, if Dallas Turner gets to, in 2 years, when he becomes kind of same age and all this stuff, if he can do those same things, yes, he will probably be the better player because he's the better athlete.
Yep.
But I don't see him producing at that level in the next 2 years. I don't see him being able to come up with 26 pass rush moves. I don't see him coming up with all this stuff. I think that the difference is just so large that even in 2 years, and that's another thing too. With Latu, you take him, at 8, you get 5 years, fifth year option. He is 28.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you pay him for 2 more years, then you have to worry about him. 7 years down the line, you have to worry about him when he's finally over 30.
Yeah, and majority of first-round picks in every class, in every situation, is usually on another team.
Right.
Whether they flamed out, whether they got too expensive and they moved on, or free agency, they walked, what have you. Very rarely do you see a first-round pick lasting more than 8 years with the team.
I'm a Raiders fan.
Yeah.
Khalil Mack. We don't have him anymore. He's gone to 3 teams.
Yep.
And
he's been productive
at every place he's gone, but it wasn't like he was a little older. When he left us, it was because of the fact that we could not pay him, and truly, we might have been
when somebody offers you 3 first-round picks for a non-quarterback.
Exactly.
You have, if Michael Dallas,
Cameron.
small tangent. So, report came out that Micah is wearing thin in the locker room. Whether that's true or not, you should want him on the team because he produces.
Right.
However, if somebody
rounders.
offers 3 first-rounders for Michael Parsons, you would be an idiot to not accept that trade because you're on a now downward trajectory due to all your losses. To me, you're not a contender anymore.
We have to pay him too,
and you got to pay him.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you could...
if somebody is going to take on all that contract, you get 0 dead money and 3 first-round picks. Take the deal.
Absolutely. Run away with the deal.
Yeah, and look what Khalil Mack has done since then. He's been a Defensive Player of the Year with Chicago. Impressive. Last year, had 5 sacks in 1 game. Incredible. He's just been very good.
But what have those teams done?
Exactly.
Is my thing. Like, Chicago has not won.
Exactly.
And we can keep talking about, well, we just keep going through quarterbacks. And then you go to LA and you've got, like, oh, we just have bad coaching. It's like, Khalil Mack, though, has been consistent. Y'all are still not winning. No matter what your excuse is. If he's
and that's
3 first-round picks worth of, for... Yeah.
And that's just the epitome, because if Khalil Mack, you found out in the injury report, he's the late scratch, he's not playing Sunday. He is not going to move the point total.
No.
So if the spread is 3, it's going to stay at 3.
Yeah.
But if Justin Herbert's out,
6.
It's going to move to a touchdown.
Yeah.
Because it's that big of a difference.
Yeah.
So obviously you want good players, but there comes a point when somebody gets so desperate that they overspend because they think they're 1 piece away.
Yeah.
And if you are not 1 piece away, it more often than not works out when you're the team that accumulates those picks.
Well, don't overlook Latu, guys.
Yes.
Jeez Louise.
Sorry.
We're just trying to do that.
Yeah, we're just trying to mock the mock. We're not even out of 10 yet.
Yeah.
So,
this is what we would do.
Yeah.
And no one's going to listen to us, and it's okay because we're, don't overlook Latu. He's an awesome player, and that's why he's going at 8 in our draft.
Yep.
All you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So I'll take the reins. This time, I want to trade up. This is probably one of my riskier decisions, but we don't have a first-round pick as a Denver Bronco, and we inherited a terrible situation, and obviously we got to eat a record amount of cap due to losing, or getting rid of, rather, Russell Wilson. So we need to address this because we don't have a second-round pick, like I said, and none of those quarterbacks will be falling around 3. Right. So I think it's just best go get your guy. I look at Sean Payton in 2017, how he was so adamantly wanting Patrick Mahomes. And a lot of mocks had him going to New Orleans. I believe they were at 13 or 14.
Yeah, and that's why they
and Kansas City, who not one mock, not one analyst said anything about Mahomes to Kansas City. Kansas City goes all the way to 10 and takes him.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Payton had to live down like, oh, we didn't go get our guy. We were like, he's going to fall to us. And I think he's like, no, we're not going to have to give up another first. Just give a couple more picks.
Right.
And we'll figure it out. And again, this is not a great roster, but we need to find somebody that can just maximize the ability that we have because we are invested in Sean Payton. And Sean Payton, what's a quarterback that can thrive in that system is somebody that's highly accurate, great decision maker, protects football. That is what Bo Nix has done. Highest completion percentage of all time last year.
Adjusted was insane.
Touchdown interception ratio 45-3. What more do you want? Obviously, it's a reach based on how we evaluate him, but we're not going to play the waiting game anymore. We're not going to let a second quarterback just get taken right in front of us because now we're more uncertain that somebody will fall because New England is now at 11. So they could very well still take a quarterback. Mm-hmm. So we need to pick our favorite one. Whether that be J.J. McCarthy or whether that be Bo Nix, that's your decision if you want to play the GM. But in my eyes, Bo Nix makes a lot of sense. I think he would maximize his abilities with Sean Payton. That's why I want to move up and take him at 9.
Completely agree.
And then from the Chicago perspective, I'll let you break it down a little bit more. Y'all have no picks.
None.
I mean, you got 2 in the top 10, but that's pretty much it. So you need more picks, and signing Keenan Allen, obviously don't need receiver.
Yeah.
And even if you wanted him, he ain't there anymore. So move back a little bit, get a couple picks, and whoever you were going to take at 9 is probably going to be there at 12.
Yeah, that was the thing I was thinking, okay, at 11, we expect New England to go quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we have to do? We have to wait out a Tennessee Titans team that we basically know wants an offensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll go back. We'll go ahead and basically flip those 2 spots. Let a team that needs a position of need that is in the Tennessee or New England boat jump them, and it made a lot of sense. We have no picks after the 4th round. We have to get some picks so that we can recoup our roster without having and not have to pay in veterans and stuff, and pay cheaper players. But yeah, so that's why we moved back. I think Bo Nix makes a lot of sense. He's a little bit older, whatever. He was a product of COVID and redshirt years and moving the transfer portal. That's fine. Whatever. He's a really accurate quarterback. He's a leader. Oregon had nothing, like everything that they said about him was just, he changed the culture. He made this place a better place. And he is a Sean Payton style quarterback. The biggest complaint about Bo Nix going into the draft process, he doesn't throw the ball deep enough. He doesn't push the ball down the field. Well, good. Because Sean Payton doesn't care.
I don't remember Drew Brees throwing it down the field all the time.
Sean Payton wants I'm going to run 10-yard out route, 10-yard out route, 10-yard out
route. Slant.
Yeah. Where's Mike Thomas when you need him, right? Yep. So maybe he'll be there. It's possible. So I think this pick makes a lot of sense. If you're going to pick the quarterback that needs to go to the Broncos, that's who it is.
Yep. Yeah, so going on to 10, Tennessee obviously traded back originally. I struggled again deciding which lineman to go with. Based on the moves that we've made, we're getting away from obviously Derrick Henry moved on. We're not the smash mouth team anymore.
Right.
Talise Fuaga is the by far best run blocker in this class. If Derrick Henry was still here and that's the route that we're going, that's probably what we should be doing. However, we're not. We got 2 scat backs.
Mm-hmm.
We got heavily invested into older receivers, and Will Levis, has an arm. So we need to do our best to put somebody that can help with the pass blocking and fix the hole on the left side. And the next best available left tackle, Olu Fashanu, preseason top 10 pick. But it's just so many teams need quarterbacks and receivers popped off, and
yep.
All of a sudden now you see him slipping a little bit. We're going to just go ahead and do a slight reach, but figure out a huge need that's probably one of the biggest, or probably the biggest non-quarterback position to, address.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
we have the worst situation at that spot. So that's why I want to go with that. I think it just made more sense with our timeline and how we're stylistically moving our offense towards.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense. He also plays left tackle. I expect left tackle to be what the Tennessee Titans want to do, rather than trying to push a right tackle over there. He's still young. He lacks a little bit in the run game, but some of that grown man strength is coming. So that might change a little bit as he gets older.
Yeah.
So
I also feel like Olu is one of the guys that's been negatively impacted by nitpicking too much. Still a first-team All-American and give up 0 sacks.
Yeah.
Like,
he got nitpicked on his hand size.
Hand size.
I don't know what that. I don't even know if that translates.
Yeah, because don't even know if that's a relevant thing. Yeah. But now he's kind of fallen into the mid-teens in drafts, and if there was more teams that needed a tackle in the top 10, he'd probably be more talked about in mocks there.
Right.
But we see mocks that J.C. Latham is getting picked ahead of him, and it's just like, what are we doing? And it doesn't make sense. So we're just gonna figure out our left tackle, and that's just where I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with him is, like, analysts are very split. I've seen him at the number 1 tackle on boards. Still, even till this day, which is fine. I've also seen him as the 5th tackle on boards, and I'm like, all right, guys, like, me in the middle first off. So that's something. I think he's probably 3. That's where we have him. But at the same time, it's like, what did he do that was wrong that puts these other guys above him? Like, play on film, he was really good in, like, this the NFL is built on passing the ball. Like, getting after the passer, that's why you get edge rushers. Blocking for the passer, throwing the ball, catching it, and stopping the guy that catches it. That's how we look at it, right?
Yep.
And that's the most important positions. Well, this guy's really good at blocking the guy that's trying to get after the quarterback. And yes, the run game isn't great, but it'll come. Age brings that. Yeah. But he has one of the best natural abilities to block.
Tennessee's going to be one of those teams that this year, similar to Tampa Bay last year, everybody, if you're a fantasy football fan, Rachaad White is that guy. PPR wise, couldn't have done any wrong for you last year. Just very solid. They were once again dead last rushing the football.
Yep.
But the common fan doesn't think about that because it's like, oh, Rachaad White, scat back, it's about 100 all-purpose yards, and can burst it.
4 catches.
And so the guys that we have, Tony Pollard, where did he thrive the most was when Zeke was doing the in-between tackles. He was a scat. And then Tyjae Spears was an excellent compliment to Derrick Henry.
Right.
He started really coming on the second half of the season. I don't know why they're both together. However, it's pretty evident that neither are going to be like, oh yeah, go forward 20 times.
Right.
So that's why it's like that's going to minimize the deficiencies, at least early on, for Olu as a run blocker. It's not going to be expected that much.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that Olu makes a lot of sense. Big need fit and easy. We're going to jump into showing y'all the top 10. It's just kind of a breakdown of everything we did with trades and whatnot. 3 quarterbacks early, 3 receivers, a couple tight offensive tackles, an edge, and another quarterback. I think it makes a lot of sense. It fits really well for what we expect and the differences between what we see and what these big ESPN, NFL Network, our analysts are doing. Neither of us, at the end of the day, what happens in the draft is we're going to get maybe 25% of the draft right. And that's them too. It's not just us. And so, anything can happen is basically what I'm getting at. But
right. So yeah, we'll jump out of the top 10, move on. New England now on the board. Not a lot of people have them trading out. We ended up going that route, but we're still going to go ahead and take the quarterback here. J.J. McCarthy is a guy that we're not as high on as consensus. He's a very, great on the whiteboard, great interview, and he's really, really young and raw. Wasn't asked to do a ton to get them to the championship, but he had the maturity, the leadership, all that good qualities to make it seem like he can be a good pro in the right situation, but you can't rush it. He will not play a snap for us this year. It's going to be all the way Jacoby Brissett. I don't care if we're 0-9. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be the quarterback. And we'll figure out other needs as we go. But it just made a lot of sense picking somebody that a lot of people viewed being a top 6 pick, fell all the way to us at 11. In addition to taking the chance on him, we get an additional first-round pick. And, that's what's going to help us fill out our roster.
Right.
And we're going to address and we're going to get better skill position players later in the draft. And by the time when he's ready, whether that be the second half of the season, hopefully not, hopefully the second year, we're going to have it all figured out.
So we talked about this in a quarterback rankings video, which y'all should go see. I have the question, and I'm going to have this question until it happens, but basically, when JJ gets when they have to put the game on his back, because he didn't have to do that in Michigan. Mm-hmm. He won the national championship by 20 plus points. I don't even remember the score. I stopped watching it basically. Mm-hmm. It was so wide.
Yeah, 120 yards.
Yeah. So what happens when all the pressure's on his shoulders, where he has to win the game? And so that's my question, and that's why it's kind of a what if. Of course, he had a really good passer rate or QBR, 89.2. It's really awesome, but I see a lot of issues with his throwing, with his throws and stuff. And I know he's young. I know he's got to overcome that basically. But I guess my question to you is, I see people putting him above Drake May, who is the same age, basically 2 months apart. And we have JJ going over him when Drake was a ACC Offensive Player of the Year. Why is that happening?
I think people are just wary of Drake May because, ACC was probably the worst we've seen in a decade.
Yeah.
And he did not grasp that opportunity and run with it, even if they're not a playoff team. At least winning the conference when Clemson is down, and or at least competing with Florida State, but they're losing to NC State, and he's playing poorly in the bad games. Has the least amount around him compared to every other quarterback that we're talking about, by far. But I think people are just wary of, we don't see the production, and we look at the box score, and it's just it doesn't wow you. Whereas J.J. McCarthy has everything in his grasp. It's similar, which it doesn't sound great saying this, but the last pick in the draft, Brock Purdy, going to the perfect situation with all pros everywhere, is able to maximize his talents. J.J. McCarthy would do the exact same thing in the same situation. But he is probably somebody that's going to struggle, like you said, because he has not faced adversity in many ways in terms of playing from behind. But also, I look at a two-time MVP in Lamar Jackson, who I still have reservations about playing from behind. And that doesn't take away from him being a great player, top 5 quarterback. But if the game's on the line, there's a lot of people that are probably ranked behind him overall as a talent that I'd rather have.
Of course.
Just because they are able to move the ball down the field, make throws, not into triple coverage in an AFC Championship game when it's only a 2-score game.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. But that's besides the point. Again, he's not ready now. And that we're okay with it. We're going to take the shot, let him fall to us, and, see if he can develop. And if he doesn't, then we'll address it at a later point. But we saw with San Francisco how they drafted a quarterback and he didn't work out. And yes, it's unfortunate that he only had 2 games before he truly got benched. But sometimes that's just how it works.
Yeah, it's a business.
Yeah, if you figure it out, it doesn't matter whether that was your first-round quarterback or your fourth-round quarterback. You figured it out.
Right.
San Fran went to the Super Bowl, and they had one of the worst picks of the last 10 years. In addition to having to trade 3 first-round picks for him.
Mm-hmm.
And they still got there.
Mm-hmm.
So they solved their need. And that just that's how I view it from my perspective.
I think I agree with the fact that no matter, if he goes to a good situation, then it's going to be good. Mm-hmm. But if he goes to a bad situation, I do believe it will be bad.
Yes.
And New England is a bad situation.
It is.
And I know that's why you're saying he's going to sit for the year, because if he goes in and
if we stayed at 3, we would pick Drake May, and it would be the same thing.
Right.
We view Drake May as a higher and a more talented prospect, but he still is not ready to play in a bad situation, as we saw when a lot of his skill players left.
Right.
After his fantastic sophomore year, he was ACC Player of the Year,
mm-hmm.
and then he had a regression year. It was similar to Sam Howell, how he was a first-round pick, and then 3 NFL caliber skill players all left in the same time.
Right.
And then he just was left with nothing and regressed, and then he was a 5th-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's leading the league in passing halfway into this year. He has talent. He just needs talent around him.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of quarterbacks are like that. Very few quarterbacks you can count on one hand that can actually thrive in any system. And we know Patrick Mahomes can, obviously.
Yeah.
But
had to.
Do we even know that Josh Allen for sure can? Because he's going to have to prove it this year. Now that Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis are gone, they are going to probably have a rookie receiver, mm-hmm. and he's going to be having an underwhelming receiving core. Can he still be a top 5 quarterback, or is he going to regress? So there's a lot of guys that are, if you put him on the worst team in the league with the worst skill players, is he going to just turn them around like a la Andrew Luck? Or is he going to struggle like a Josh Rosen, who had the worst situation ever, and then they get the first pick, and they're like, oh, we're moving on.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm just wondering, because I think that the comparison for 2 guys that are basically the same age, mm-hmm. similar skill sets, one has proven himself not in winning games. I'm not saying that, but proven himself to be able to throw the ball and do those types of things. And then the other one never having to truly be the driving force for his team to win. I'm just wondering.
They're stylistically going to be two very different quarterbacks. One's going to be a guy that has the instinct to making plays. The other guy is going to make the right decision.
System.
So,
right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is made a lot of money being a system quarterback, and he gets a lot of flack. He actually gets too much flack. You know, but you see somebody like Dak Prescott, who was not a top pick, that has the same exact results as Kirk Cousins, but he's on better teams, better situations, and people view him on a pedestal,
right?
When they probably are the same level of talent.
No, I get it. But yeah, so moving on from our rant on quarterbacks, we will be jumping over to the cornerback position. Chicago Bears back on the clock after their trade down for the Denver Broncos, and we take the best corner in the class in Quinn and Mitchell. A lot of people want to mock edge to Chicago. That makes sense. Don't get me wrong. But I think, with Latu off the board and my confidence in between these players, I like Quinn Mitchell. I like the fact that I'm going to get two stable cornerbacks for the next 4 years, and not really have to address that position and worry about that. I feel very comfortable with Quinn Mitchell coming in and being able to be whatever I want him to be. A press corner, an off-man corner, a zone corner. Great eyes, great feet, and biggest thing of all, great competitor. And so I love getting guys like that, and I think Chicago will too. So
yeah, I mean, to me, Chicago best defensive player on the board makes the most sense. You've pretty much figured out your entire offense. You addressed it at least. I mean, you got two multi-thousand-yard receivers. You already drafted your quarterback of the future. You got a running back by committee, but you also signed DeAndre Swift. Your line is much better than the public actually views it.
Absolutely.
And then you got an edge rusher in Montez Sweat, and then Jalen Johnson you resigned after tagging him. So that's pretty much it on your defense. After missing
two linebackers, they're overpaid,
but they're solid. So you just need to continue hitting on the defense, and Chicago just feels right when you have a solid defense. So makes a lot of sense. Like Quinn Mitchell a lot. First team All-American from Toledo doesn't happen very often. So you guys just take it and run and just not worry about it and let that 1-2 punch just work its magic, because not many teams have two very talented corners anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so again, we're just going to break these by position. So coincidentally, moving on, number 13, Raiders really were hoping Quinn Mitchell fell. But they're really in need of more talent in their secondary. They're kind of embracing the defensive mentality, and I know they do have needs on the offensive side, but having a good solid man corner is something that I think would really help them, and I think Nate Wiggins can be that guy for them, especially being one of the younger corners in this class.
Yeah, I think we talk about who can actually go out there and cover somebody and just stare into them. Ball snapped. That's the only thing you care about is, wherever he goes to the bathroom, you go with him, type of thing. And I think Nate Wiggins is the best guy for that. That's why I think he fits here. Quinn Mitchell's better at just being an all-around corner. But Nate Wiggins might be the guy that you're like, hey, man-to-man, go cover that guy. I'm covering that guy. Long arms, 6'2", taller corner like you want. Long arms, like I said, just able to keep up. He's got the speed to recover when he gets beat. Things like that you just can't coach. And
one of the biggest things with him throughout this offseason that we were concerned about was him measuring 173 at the combine in terms of weight. He put that on 13 pounds 2 weeks later on his pro day. So solve that need.
Yeah.
And so obviously he's got a thinner frame, but he put on the weight, and I don't think or view it as a huge concern.
I think he plays at 190, 195. I think that's probably realistic. Going to the combine, you want to run fast? Well,
that's probably what he
did. Yeah. And he ran fast. I mean, he ran very fast. So that'll do it. And, both these guys, about 43% completion rate. That's really good. But yeah, I think both of these guys going 12-13 makes a lot of sense. These teams need corners, and go get them.
Yeah.
So,
and then we'll jump up to 17 real quick just to break down Jacksonville. We've had them going corner multiple mocks so far. It's been different ones just based on who they fall. Terry Arnold falls to them at 17, and it just makes a lot of sense. He, was good with his ball skills, first team All-American for a reason, and I thought the fit was just made way too much sense.
Yeah, the style of corner that they need and want after missing on C.J. Henderson is a guy like Terry Arnold. Gave up, he was targeted a lot this year. He gave up about half those targets to completions. A lot of people want to say like he's he's this perfect as prospect. Like some people have him in their top 10 of big board players, and I just don't think that that's realistic when he's very good. He's great getting in the hip and stuff, but he also has his own group of issues. He played across from another All-American in Kool-Aid McKinstry, and no one wanted to target Kool-Aid. They were all over Terran Arnold. I think that means a lot. Like I know that we want to talk about, he's more of an athlete than Kool-Aid. He's got these traits. Well, I'll tell you what, Kool-Aid didn't get targeted. No one wanted to throw at him. He was really great in the red zone. So I also, he had 5 interceptions. A couple of those, 3 of them, I believe, were all tip passes. So truly let's bring that number down a little bit. And he got scored on twice. So the age is great, but I'm not sold that he is a top corner yet.
Yeah, he's obviously kind of riding the thick of that tier of corners that we have, if you want to check out our cornerback rankings. But to me, he might pose the highest risk.
Right.
And it's mainly just because he a product of his environment and the situational when, you look at the box score and, oh, yeah, another interception. Well, yeah, that doesn't show that, it fell right into my arms.
Dallas Turner hit the quarterback and the ball just went up in the air.
It just floated up. So interceptions is not an end-all, be-all. You can look at 2022 when Trayvon Diggs had 12 interceptions, and he also gave up 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
So just because you have the ball skills doesn't mean that you're an elite corner. Maybe he becomes one, we'll see, but I think he's not. I don't view him as safe as other corners, and maybe I probably could have gone another direction, but the other 2 corners that we do have are kind of hybrid, just defensive backs, and I kind of wanted to just address corner with this pick after signing a couple of safeties in free agency.
I think that's fair. Also, with the other corners that they will be in this draft. I mean, they will be on this. We'll get to them. I think that there were 2 guys here that you were fighting over, and it was the teammates. So, I mean, it makes sense. You basically got the upside, but you also have the lower floor in this pick. So, but jumping over, the New Orleans Saints are on the clock. We're going to do the offensive line in this section together also. And a guy that should not be here. I mean, we both talk about it, and Fuaga falls to 14. And I mean, New Orleans has to get a tackle. Terran Armstead's been gone. Trevor Penning isn't the answer on the left side. Ryan Ramczyk might be out for the rest of his career. It might be a career-ending injury. We have to find somebody that can at least play. And getting a guy that has been so dominant in his style of play, and checked all the boxes going pre-draft up to this point, with the ability to pass block, and Fuaga makes a ton of sense. Best run blocker in the class, but also showed off that he can pass block. Win against Latu at the Senior Bowl, beat him once, and I think that this pick is a slam dunk. So
yeah, and New Orleans is kind of like in a little bit of a purgatory just because they're kind of in the tween stages of rebuild.
Yeah,
like they could very well just hit the rock bottom this year, but they could also flirt with the division title. Like they almost were able to gain, and they have a very easy schedule, and they just need great football players that can contribute right away. And I think Talisi can just walk right in and be a top 12 tackle. And, obviously they're not a ground and pound, but they do go a lot through the running back room.
Right.
I think Kendre Miller now as the true RB2 is going to really thrive. I know I'm a little higher on him than you are, but as a compliment to Alvin Kamara, who's been one of the most productive running backs in the last 5 years, that's who they want to go through. Obviously, they lost Michael Thomas, so it's really just the running backs. Chris Olave is all they got, and so being able to have somebody that pulls, that extends plays down the field, and helps move the ball is something that they need, and I think it's a good fit there.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah, and then 16, I was a little bit surprised. Seattle is kind of one of the unknowns, but with only one edge off the board, I'm surprised you didn't go edge. Tell me why you ended up deciding on Jackson Powers-Johnson.
So I'm really high on Jackson Powers-Johnson, but even more so, we just let everybody in our interior offensive line walk this offseason. We are completely just resetting that position group. And, I think that the option, if I didn't take a interior offensive lineman here, I'd probably be kicking myself, because then I'd have to find a way to get guys that could play that position later on in the draft, and I probably wouldn't be as comfortable with one of these first round talents. Jackson Powers-Johnson, best center in the country this last year, basically did no wrong. 0.002, 0.002.
2 zeros.
Yeah, 2 zeros.
2 zeros.
Percent pressure rate. So basically none. I mean, none. So perfect kind of stats there. First team All-American consensus. Biggest problem is, we talked in the past that sometimes centers don't always work out when they're first round picks, and that's what scares teams off. I understand that, but I love taking really good football players, and he has not done anything wrong from the pre-draft process, season. He's really young. He's been pretty perfect, and I don't know that I want to fault him for being the position that he's at.
Right. Yeah, and also centers aren't necessarily known for their pass blocking skills.
Right.
They're just redirection, pulling, run blocking. But pass blocking, when you're able to have the success that he had, and being as young as he is, he just turned 21. Will be 21 and a half to start the year. You can't go wrong. It's so safe. He's so polished as a player already, and he's going to be there for a long time. So
yeah. Only on the way up, right? So
yeah, and so we'll move on to 20. Pittsburgh really had a tough time going receiver or tackle here, but receiver wasn't here that we wanted, and we didn't want to reach, and we obviously need a tackle. So we're going to pair Amaris Mims with Broderick Jones, who also went to Georgia.
Yeah,
just have a couple 340-pound guys,
6'8",
brutes, just meaty men that are going to be our bookends. Have a new quarterback, obviously. You still need to address receiver. Probably will. We've been one of the best at, drafting second, third round receivers of any team. We just keep on pumping out guys. Maybe not the best character guys, but, productive, if I would say
absolutely.
So. Just 0 sacks, basically no pressures. Just very, very strong year last year, and kind of has dealt with some injuries and stuff, but he's just so big and long. It's hard to.
Well, my biggest thing is he has got all the you build him in a lab. He's built in a lab. One thing that I worry about a little bit is sometimes his lateral quickness is he's a little slower laterally, and he's most likely going to have to move from the right side to the left side. But then the more I think about it, I'm like, well, at the same time, y'all like running the ball. That's first. And second, you have 2 mobile quarterbacks. And the mobile quarterback is very important in this situation because they help their offensive linemen out a lot. Whoever starts, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, whoever starts, they both can move and help and get out of the pocket and save those sacks and pressures and stuff. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Wide receiver was not here. We will talk about why in a second. But I think that, taking the next best tackle on the board makes a lot of sense here for sure.
So critique me a little bit, refresh the audience. You can check out our offensive tackle prospect rankings to get a little bit more of a breakdown. But a lot of people have J.C. Latham as a top 15 pick.
They do.
Obviously, we do not. They're very similar in terms of just being big, girthy guys that are just have massive ceiling, but also a lot of risk. Tell me why I was right or even wrong about picking Amarius Mims over J.C. Latham here.
Well, the athleticism is different. I think that Amarius Mims is a better athlete. The ability to move over to left tackle makes a lot of sense. And also, I have a lot of reservations with J.C. Latham. I don't know that he will be able to be productive at tackle at the next level because he is so top heavy. He lunges. He's going to be great in run blocking, but I need pass blockers. That's what we built. That's what we talked about earlier. Pass is the game. And Amarius Mims is better at that. He's way more comfortable, more fluid, and his arm length, his size. You got Broderick Jones and Amarius Mims on both sides. Now your pocket just became, 3 foot wider. So it's one of those things too. I just think it makes a lot more sense.
Gotcha. So now we'll jump back to 15, and somehow, some way, Brock Bowers still fell to 15.
He did.
He's a top 5 prospect overall for us, and yet we still had a hard time finding a spot. He is probably the hardest guy to find a fit for.
Yeah.
But anybody from 6 through 15, if somebody was like, "We're taking Brock Bowers," not one of them would get a scoff or a side eye.
No bad grades from us. No,
because he is going to make your team instantly better. He is the greatest tight end prospect in NFL history.
2-time. Well,
that is
the day he walked onto Georgia's campus, he was the best player in the locker room.
Yeah,
that's
and very rarely
crazy.
do you hear announcers when they're calling games, especially in the SEC, saying this is the best player in the country.
Oh yeah,
being a tight end.
Yeah,
and he was that as a freshman. Walked right in, and just crazy.
Too bad he had some injuries this year. He's a 2-time Mackey Award winner. That means he is the best tight end in football twice.
Yep.
And he's a 2-time All-American. He does
a lot more too.
Oh, he's the best. I mean, we can go into if you go watch the tight end video, we have a very long rant about Brock Bowers because there's different styles of tight ends. There's receiving tight ends, there's blocking tight ends, there's inline, all these things, H-backs, whatever. Brock Bowers is all of them, and he's the best at it. No matter what you say, Brock Bowers, he's a receiving tight end. Well, guess what? He's the best receiving tight end in this class.
Yeah. He
might be a top 10 receiver in this class. And this is a very good receiver class, so that's saying a lot. He's, the reason you want guys like this and why I really put, all around tight ends over just receiving tight ends is because you go and watch the San Francisco-Detroit game in the NFC Championship, and you've got George Kittle pancaking Aiden Hutchinson. Aiden Hutchinson is a first-team All-Pro. He's a future, multi-year All-Pro, and he's pancaking him. And that is something that you just don't find when you talk about tight ends.
The only reservation with Brock, and it's not even Brock, it's just the position he plays, is that all of the best tight ends in the modern era have all been mid-round picks. Yeah. And that just shows, you can... TJ Hawkinson was a top 10 pick. Yeah. But other than that...
No one.
And people try to find, Noah Fant and O.J. Howard being the next guys. Kyle Pitts, obviously, remains to be seen, but he has underachieved based on his height.
Right.
And so investing in those when it's like, I could just get Sam Laporta in the second round and he can instantly be a top 5 tight end.
George Kittle in the
fifth. Yeah. Travis Kelce can be the third.
Yeah.
Third round pick.
But I will say the only one of those guys that was picked first round that was a all-around type of tight end like Brock was T.J. Hawkinson. Yes. The other guys were all receiving tight ends. And Kyle Pitts is still out. He could be good. I mean, he was in an Arthur Smith offense. It sucks. I'm sorry. No matter who you are. Good luck, Pittsburgh. Amarius Mims. That also makes sense. But, I mean, seriously, Brock fits any style of offense. He goes to the Colts. He's one of their best players. Even if they don't he won't be used correctly, but necessarily.
Yeah, he probably won't be your tight end one ever as like a fantasy draft. Yeah. However, he will be what's viewed like George Kittle, how we view George Kittle as the best tight end in football.
Right.
If you want to put Kelsey, sure, he's not anymore. It's George Kittle. It's because he's an all-around player. Yeah. But George Kittle is going to have multiple games where he has 2 catches for 4 yards, like he did in the NFC Championship game, the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like the biggest game of them all, and he's getting one catch and then another catch, and it's at the ground, and then he gets out for the game. Well, so
I also want to say though, like T.J. Hawkinson's right on his tail as the best tight end. I think that's got to be said because TJ can block too, and he's really good at that too. But he outshines himself when he catches the ball. So,
and we'll see what he can do when he returns because he will not start the year playing football. No. So, moving on, we're going to. I'm going to preface this pick. We are going to do a trade. T. Higgins is, as of right now, outside of Antoine Winfield, who sounds like he's getting a deal very soon, the only player that was tagged to just not have a solidified future or home. Like you said, a couple have been traded. He requested a trade. They know they're going to pay Jamar Chase. Mm-hmm. They've already paid Joe Burrow. Doesn't make sense to pay another receiver $20 million
and not get anything for him.
And not get anything for him if he walked. So you might as well sniff out the market and see what happens. And lo and behold, Detroit has no needs.
Ring ring.
So they're gonna overpay a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think he's worth a first rounder, especially this year when there's so many receivers that are talented that could be much cheaper. But they're gonna just go for it. Committing Detroit, they're gonna just trade their first rounder for him. And they also receive a mid-round pick this year to help with that. But Cincinnati has 2 first-round picks now. That being said, number 18, Brian Thomas Jr. falls right in their lap. And if there's anything that he is being able to be productive as a wide receiver too. The first receiver off LSU that it went earlier at 6, Brian Thomas Jr. led the nation in touchdowns.
17 of them.
17 of them. He had such a high completion percentage when targeted, and he's a downfield threat.
78% of the time he caught the ball when he was targeted.
78.
And to say that means anything, he caught the ball 15 plus yards down the field. He is the best deep threat in this class. Mm-hmm. There are I want to say this again because I think I don't say it enough. There are 4 wide receiver 1s in this class. Brian Thomas is one of them. And he played with another wide receiver 1. Don't get it overlooked.
Yeah.
They were both wide receiver 1s at the next level. And don't overlook it.
Yeah. And he's the reason he's not up there with those other guys. He's in a tier of his own in our eyes. However, he's clearly the 4th best receiver.
Right.
He's not as refined as a route runner. He is a downfield playmaker. But he doesn't need to be all those things when you have Jamar Chase.
Right.
So just get a compliment to him. And when you're already elite at being a compliment to another great receiver, and you also are LSU Bengal Tiger now. So it just makes too much sense. And obviously, this move is not made without moving on from T. We're moving on. We're going to get what we can, especially if somebody's going to wave a first-round pick in front of us. We have a couple other needs, and we can address it with our now additional first-round pick.
Detroit, we're going to talk. I mean, the other side of the trade, I'm Detroit. And I'm like, okay, look, I don't have any needs, but I need a good number 2.
Yeah.
And a good number 2 without having to draft one and hope that they're good. Let me just get T. Higgins, and let's go try to win the Super Bowl. When we were that close this last year. We were up on San Francisco. And we could have would have been a very different game if Detroit's in the Super Bowl versus Kansas City. So yeah, let us get T. Higgins and run with it.
And with Detroit, like, they've built the roster so well over the last couple of years. but it's been so unorthodox based on how they did it. If you look at their last year class, their first pick was Jahmyr Gibbs, and that came out of nowhere because he was a very best case scenario late first round pick.
Right.
And then they overdrafted Jack Campbell, but then they had Sam Laporta fall to him, Brian Branch fell to him, and then if you just put the class up together and how productive they were, it doesn't matter where they were picked.
best class in
football. It doesn't matter that Jameson Williams has been a bust as a first round receiver. Monroe St. Brown's now a top 10 receiver in the league, and he was a second round pick.
Right.
So you found it. Just don't poo-poo it.
Yeah.
So obviously they do things a little differently, and that's why probably they were so willing to give up the late first, because they've solved every need. They have the best line in football. They got 2 great running backs. Probably need some more receiver. One of the best young tight ends. Serviceable quarterback for the time being, and they drafted their backup last year. And then on the defensive side, flipped to being one of the best run defenses in football. Only bad thing. Help. And they signed so many corners in the offseason. So they've addressed everything. Now you just got to make moves to put you over the top and hold on to that 14 2-touchdown lead.
Right.
I think it's a win-win for both sides in that trade.
Yep. So love that pick. Brian Thomas is going to go earlier than 18 when draft day comes, just so everybody knows.
No, Kyrie.
28th, guys. Yeah, but whatever.
That was today's mock. Yeah. That wasn't even a... Sorry. Well, that's another video.
Yeah. We'll mock the mock later. But next up, I have the Rams on the clock. We get the next edge on the board in Dallas Turner. When you're at 19 and Dallas Turner drops to you, you take him. I know we talked about how Dallas Turner might have a little bit more issues than Latu. Well, guess what? All my issues are gone when I don't have to get him at not 8.
Yeah.
Now I'm at 19.
And a lot of people have the Rams picking the first defensive interior lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you lost Aaron Donald doesn't mean you have to place him exactly.
Kobe Durant's really good.
You just have to replace the production in some way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
So if you do it as an edge rusher,
cool.
I'm all ears, man. Yeah. And Dallas Turner is a lot of people's minds a top 12 pick, and he falls all the way to 19. Like, that's not as big of a risk, and it's a very young, exciting defense all of a sudden.
Right.
When we thought it'd be one of the worst ever, they just hit on so many late round picks, and now they finally have a first round pick for the first time since 2016. I think it's a slam dunk.
Right. Absolutely. I think also, that was a big difference. 11 picks between where most people are mocking the first edge and the second edge.
Mm-hmm.
So here's our picks from 11 to 20. Not a lot of movement. The only movement that we saw was the Detroit and Cincinnati trade.
Yeah, and then the teams that ultimately traded out of the top 10.
Right, exactly. So
yeah, everybody kind of stays put, but they find fits where they probably need it. So now we have another trade.
Why not?
This is one that probably you haven't seen in another mock. It's a fun one. Miami has no picks. They have no cap space, and they've already addressed a lot of needs based on the guys that they've departed, but they need picks. They have the least amount of picks in the entire draft, and Atlanta has not a ton of needs, but they have an abundance of picks. Right. They have 2 second rounders. So, take it away.
Well, I decided that it would be a good idea I wanted to trade out at 8, and no one wanted to listen to me. No one was coming, no one was trying to.
I hung up the phone.
Yeah, no one was listening. So I was like, well, fine. I'm going to take my favorite defensive player at this point, best defensive player on the board. And then I'm going to jump back into the first round and spoil Philadelphia's happiness and take the next best defensive player on the board in Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean, there's nothing bad to say about this guy. Like, just freak athlete, has the most points in Indiana, I believe Indiana or Iowa, Iowa basketball, high school basketball all time over Harrison Barnes. Like, just a great athlete. A Big Ten defensive back of the year, first team All-American return specialist, the best safety in the class, the best nickel in the class, and possibly a top 5 corner in the class. So I just get a good player.
Yeah, I mean, we love Cooper DeJean. The only concern was just the broken leg that he was recovering from. But, he had a personal pro day this past Monday and was just tested out of the water.
Yeah,
killed it. So all concerns are moot. Great pick. And they kind of had to do that because he wasn't falling past 25.
Yeah.
And you need to, at the very least, get in front of Green Bay. And since this point, there was an additional corner taken.
Yeah.
And Philly is the obvious pencil in a corner spot. So then kind of jumping towards Philly in that regard, they got to reach a little bit, but that's the true need that they still have.
Well, I believe it's a reach based on most drafts pick him, but at the same time, like we just had a conversation that Kool-Aid might be better than Terry Arnold, and it's like one of those things where you go and get a guy. I mean, trading back would have been great, but at the same time, if I trade back and I'd miss out on Kool-Aid, I'm really sad because then
there's
really
a big
reaching.
drop off after that.
Yeah, then I'm really reaching. So I think taking Kool-Aid, getting a guy that first team All-American, one of the most consistent DBs in football, smart IQ, high IQ guy, competitive in the red zone. I think it just made a lot of sense. I think he's a guy that makes a ton of sense, and I desperately need in Philly. I'm really mad at Atlanta, so that's kind of where I am. Well, it's like I had a high point with Atlanta and then a really low point with the Eagles on the next pick. So jumping to 23, we're going to talk about 3 wide receivers that are going to go in this range. Cam, you're up first.
Yeah, they're on my team. So New England gets a second first-round pick, obviously, from the Minnesota trade, and they're going to just go ahead and draft A.D. Mitchell. I just can't get over how he shows up in big moments and just catches all the things that come his way in the red zone.
Yeah.
Like where money is made, that's where he shines the brightest. And he's one of the, if you just look at the stats, you wonder why he's even a fringe first round pick. But it's just, you just have to look at the overall body of work and how every college playoff game, despite being on stacked skill groups at Georgia and then Texas,
he's
scored every single time. And what was it?
8 out of 9.
Yeah, 8 out of 9 red zone targets this year. Scored touchdowns. So that's who I want on my team. Yeah. And so that's where I'm going to go with. New England obviously needs receivers because their best one right now is KJ Osborne. And I would probably put Hunter Henry above KJ as the top target. But it's just all bad. And I don't expect him to be a wide receiver 1 there, but we're going to continue addressing it. I don't expect him to flirt with being offensive rookie of the year. He should not. He shouldn't expect to. But, we've missed so many receivers selecting throughout the old regime that we needed to turn the tide a little bit. So it just made too much sense. We need to address it in some way, shape, or form, and that's why we did it here.
And he's a top 15 athlete all time on his
relative athletic score.
Yeah, relative athletic score. Makes a lot of sense. Kind of have somebody to throw the ball to for JJ. Get him hopefully on the same page and build a connection. But the next guy is one of our favorite guys in this draft class. Falls all the way to 28, which is a lot of people putting him outside the first round. I just can't see it. I think he's going in the first round. The Buffalo Bills get Ladd McConkey.
Yeah. And after the Stephon Diggs news earlier this week, Buffalo probably is a team that should probably be targeting Brian Thomas. In real life, they're going to have to go very, very high. We'll see if they do that. Another thing, but they just wanted to get the best one available. And whether or not it was A.D. Mitchell or Ladd here, Ladd might be the better fit. Just being the precise route runner he is, being able to make plays all over the field. That's kind of the butter of how Josh Allen makes his money as a quarterback. He doesn't just throw the contested balls. He throws it to the sidelines a lot. He throws it over the middle. Those are where he makes his big-time throws, and Ladd just makes plays. Yeah. And we didn't realize he had the speed, and he's got the speed too. So his stats are down only because missing a couple games due to injury, and then he goes to three-headed monster running regime at Georgia, but he just pops off the screen.
Yeah, he's so good at football, man.
Yeah, and then
he killed it at the Senior Bowl. He killed it at the Combine.
Yeah, go watch his Combine tape.
Yeah,
like his workouts were incredible.
His pro day tape, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
all of it. It's all crazy.
And then we'll jump to 32, Kansas City. In real life, they may need to move up for this guy. We consider it a reach.
Yes.
But I just can't get over Patrick Mahomes throwing bubble screens and end arounds to Xavier Worthy. What he was able to do, but they want a certain type of receiver, and they've missed on it when they've tried to draft Sky Moore, trade for Kadarius Toney, and
Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, Mecole Hardman back and forth from, they just can't. Can I get 600 yards, please? Like that's all they're asking for from their scat receiver. And then now Rashee Rice has his legal issues that he's dealing with, and we're not going to comment on it because we're not a speculative thing.
Right.
But there's now uncertainty if he will be available. You signed Marquise Brown to a bargain 1-year deal. Xavier Worthy, I think, is a guy that steps right away and is a fantastic third, fourth option on a team. And Kansas City, he was able to make the most out of, throwing 40-yard passes to MVS when he was able to catch them.
Right.
And now that he's gone, having a guy that can do that, and also a guy that can hit those bubbles and end arounds that Kansas City loves to run, especially around the goal line.
I think you said it best the other day when you said that this is the best place for him to go, for him to maximize his abilities. Not so much the fact that he probably isn't he's not our seventh best wide receiver on the board. Mm-hmm. We have 4 other guys, I'm not going to tell you how many, in front of him.
You got to go watch that video.
But yeah, he has other guys in front of him. And so this is a fit pick, and I completely understand it. But yeah, so jumping over to the NFC teams, the Dallas Cowboys are up next at 24, and we have to go interior offensive line. I think it makes sense to go between.
You're not right tackle?
No.
Sure.
I'm not taking Tyler Guyton here.
All right. Okay.
But
then you must be smart or something. Okay.
Troy Fautanu and Graham Barton are both on the board. I could get my pick basically when I got to this pick. I was like, well, I'm going to take the guy that I think can play left tackle the best. Because even if he projects to play interior offensive line, and we have this situation with Tyler Smith, if we decide, hey, we're going to put Tyler Smith at left tackle, we're going to play Fautanu at guard, perfect. If we want to do the opposite, that's fine too. We'll put, Tyler Smith at tackle, or at guard, and play Fautanu at tackle. So we have the opportunity to mix and match a little bit there. Got to go interior offensive line or left tackle, whichever is best. So yeah.
Yeah, and then with Green Bay, it was probably we've seen in our mock drafts where we throw defensive back to him.
Yeah.
DeJean. Well, all the defensive backs are pretty much gone for the first round caliber guys. Mm-hmm. So they just kind of have Graham Barton fall in their lap, and we've touched on it before, but there's certain guys that just kind of feel like certain teams.
Yeah, no, Graham Barton
that's something that you brought up.
Yeah, he is a Packer. Mm-hmm. And we talk about Max Crosby being a Raider, that kind of thing. Well, I don't know why, but I just see, and I also think Graham Barton could be a Cowboy. Like, I think those two teams really
if you flopped him, nobody's gonna.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like Fautanu is a Packer. That doesn't feel right to me.
Yes,
but at the same time, like Graham Barton, I could put at either of these teams and be like, yeah, that's a Cowboy. So he goes to 25. He'll be moving inside. He's a much more comfortable guard center. He is really good in the run game. He has that mentality that you want in the run game, and he's just he needs somebody on both sides of him in the pass rush against pass rushers. And so being a guard, he gets that opportunity. He might even play center. I've seen people want him to play center. Fine. He can do that too. Wherever you need him in those 3 positions, go for it. So. Yeah.
And then we'll jump to 30 real quick to address our last offensive line of this draft. Or first round, rather. J.C. Latham, another guy. He feels like a Raven.
He does.
And he probably won't be there. Based on what we see, He should be there, but yeah, I think it's another situation where it's a place that maximizes his strengths.
Yes.
And Lamar Jackson is very good about not, when he scrambles, it's not on the perimeter. It's up the middle. So a lot of times when tackles get in trouble with holding penalties and stuff like that is when quarterbacks like Russell Wilson or Dak or what have you roll out. And when you're looking that way, you're like, oh, and the defender sees, then you're holding. Or you're giving up a sack or something, and it's like, well, I protected the box. Like, why am I? And Lamar doesn't do that. And so he's a great run blocker. Like you said, plays top heavy, but he just would thrive more in a run system.
Right, and that's
and he would be a good fit with the Chargers. If they hypothetically move back to 11, a lot of people have them selecting him there. I don't know why you would do it over Fuaga. However, it would still be a solid fit. And it's not something that we're just going to, when we discuss like some of the best and worst picks, that's not going to be probably on that list if he went to that situation.
Right.
But, it just kind of remains to be seen. But I like the fit here, and Baltimore solved a need that they have still yet to address.
Right. So next we have a trade. We have the Washington Commanders jumping up to 26 to switch with the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Bucks moving back because they have a few holes that they need to address. This gets them an extra third rounder, gives them an opportunity to address an extra hole or an extra spot. And it gives Washington the opportunity to get a guy that's been dropping and should not be there really. So Washington jumps up to get Jared Verse, adding another first-round talent to their defensive line. They've been doing it for years. Two-time All-American, one of the strongest players in this draft class when it comes to edge rushers, puts offensive tackles into quarterbacks' laps. But he will almost be 24 years old when the season starts. He should have been a Raider. Let's be very honest. He should have been Tyree Wilson last year. Came out a year late, and that's why he's dropped so much.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he would have been a top 10 pick last year. That's how talented he is, and the only reason he has fallen is due to his age and just kind of...
This draft is really strong, too.
Yeah, it's kind of strong. And so if it weren't for Brock Bowers, this would be the steal of the first round, based on how far he fell. We love him as a prospect, and he is right away ready to contribute. It's just the only thing he's older, but sometimes, like, stop worrying about the age. And, we've already gotten one first-round talent signal caller of the future. Now we got to surround the team overall with talent.
Right.
Washington had more holes than anybody. They've addressed and signed more players than anybody else in the free agency, and just continue to do that. You lost Chase Young, enter Jared Verse, all is well.
Right, absolutely. So, jumping over, the Arizona Cardinals are back on the clock. They've got their second pick in the first round. We're going to pick the best D-lineman, interior defensive lineman for them. Jerzon, to me, is above Byron, but it's really close. And so I'm going to go with the guy that was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, playing for Illinois, not for Michigan, not for Ohio State, but for Illinois. And I'm really happy with this pick. 21.9 years old when the season starts. Age is good. Production was good. Consistency for 2 years was good. And I'm very comfortable with him.
Yeah, I mean, he checks all the boxes to me. Very strong. He's youthful. And he had the production. Some similar to Byron Murphy, who was one of the highest graded and had the highest pressure rates. Well, he only had 5 sacks.
Right.
And maybe that's because, the environment he plays in. But, at the end of the day, as many pressures as you do, you also got to finish the plays. And Jerzon's great at doing that, especially as defensive interior lineman. Being able to be that productive, it's just a great fit. And you can swap them and nobody's going to bat an eye.
Right. And as you were saying, we were talking about that because Cincinnati was on the clock. And because they just got the Detroit pick from the T. Higgins trade. So they add to their defensive line a player that, could end up being the best interior defensive line in this class. He has that pass rush ability that we like to see, like you said, too. So.
Yeah. Cincinnati obviously has a big need in the middle. They were really struggling in the back half of the year against the run, and they need somebody that's not only be able to do that, but rush the passer as well. And we let go of DJ Reader for some reason. It was probably one of the worst moves that I could think of, even though they did bring in somebody else at a slightly
same
discount.
price, basically.
However,
$1 million difference or something.
It's $1 million different, but it's millions and millions in terms of talent discrepancy.
Right.
Byron Murphy would be excellent compliment to him, and that's something that they need, and that's just an easy way to go there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so our last trade of the first round, Raiders, getting another guy that just kind of feels like a Raider. They've been very quiet other than signing Gardner Minshew about what they're going to do in terms of their future. And Michael Penix is just too good to not just slap that fifth-year option on. So they move up to San Francisco, who, probably needs to, get some later picks. And Michael Penix, to me, it would fit. I think the Raiders are drafting a quarterback one way or the other of these top six.
I don't know how we couldn't.
And I would not be shocked if, for some reason, if Jaden Daniels was not the pick at 2, I think they're trading whatever it takes to get up to 3 based on the connection with Jaden Daniels. But in this scenario, they are able to land one of the best corners in the class and also address the quarterback position with another, couple of seconds. I don't think that they should disregard that in any way. I think it makes sense here. And
I think some people have Michael Penix Jr. third on their big boards, over Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
We're not there, obviously, but at the same time, getting an opportunity to get a guy that could project to be one of the best in this class, you're really happy with guys if you're picking at 31 to be top 15, top 12 quarterbacks in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're picking at 1, 2, 3 where you need your guy to be a top 5 quarterback in a couple years. This is a great pick just for the fact that you get the fifth-year option. You're not going to have to pay him. You have Gardner Minshew there to kind of bring him along, a Raider style of player. It all makes sense to me. So,
yeah, and I've said before of having to rank how I see this class panning out. How it's Caleb, then it's Minnesota, and then we figure it out from there.
Right.
Well, the Raiders are one of those few places, whether they pick somebody at 3, at 13, or they trade up to get another guy, or stand pat and have somebody fall.
Mm-hmm.
They got 2 great receivers.
Yep.
And they have a really solid tight end, and they just need to figure out the coach. But in terms of offensive mind, not the head coach.
Yeah.
Tony Pierce is a defensive guy. But, yeah, it's a great situation for a quarterback to run into. And Michael Penix is one of the most pro-ready now because of not only his age, but being able to, push the ball down the field like he can.
Right. Of course.
He's got Raiders have a top 10 line also. Can dismiss that. So I can't look at how this panned out after the fact and look at Bo Nix at 9 and then JJ McCarthy at 11 to New England and not say Michael Penix probably has a better career potential because he landed with the Raiders.
Right, at 31, rather.
Exactly.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I completely agree. Looking at the picks 21 through 32, I feel like, all these guys fit the first round, except for maybe Xavier Worthy. But, hey, fit, right?
Yeah.
He'll be a first rounder.
He will be a
first rounder.
We just don't view him as it in our rankings.
I don't have a first round grade on him by any means.
No.
But at the same time, hey, Kansas City gets him. Fine. Great for them. But yeah, so we really appreciate y'all coming and hanging out with us. That's the end of our What Will We Do mock draft. Please go like, comment, and subscribe. Get in the comment sections. Hang out with us. Talk to us. Ask us some questions. We really appreciate y'all for being a part of this and being part of the journey.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for withstanding all the tangents we went on early. We just appreciate this community continuing to grow.
Yeah.
We're becoming more and more active on social media. We had one of the biggest followed NFL reporters retweet one of our tweets the other day out of nowhere, and that was really cool for us. So, and we've only been here doing this for about a month and a half now. So it's really fun. It's growing very fast. We're getting more and more comfortable as we do it, and we just hope y'all keep on tuning in and growing as we go.
Yep, almost to the draft, right?
Yep. First live stream is what we plan on doing Thursday night. We are going to welcome any kind of comments, questions, concerns. Obviously, we're not going to display the draft because that's illegal. But we're going to, break down as it happens and just have some fun throughout and work on our live game because that's a whole other beast in terms of podcasting. And we have yet to do live streams. We're going to start doing that more in the summertime once fantasy rolls around. But this will be our first go at it. So it'll be really fun.
Yep. So we appreciate y'all and y'all have a good rest of y'all's night.
Yep.